Feeling good, feeling great. Feeling great, feeling good. How are you? Welcome into Timeline T. I'm your host, D. Sam D, aka Sam Duzman Jr. Hump day already. Love those short weeks, 4-day work weeks. Shout out to those across the pond where that's a normal thing. If only we could get that off here. Okay. So, going against the grain today, it's a lot of NFL. Not a lot of heavy-duty, hardcore, let's break this down to the nitty-gritty NFL, but a good amount of NFL. So much so that we could lead with NFL. Haven't been able to do that probably since Lamar got the bag. Maybe when Patrick Mahomes, his owner, said, "You underpaid, son?" It's been that long. On the cusp of a new month. May on the way out, June on the way in. Tom Brady. Seems like we talked about him last week, if he was the GOAT or not. Looking like he's trying to pad those stats and run it back one more again. We talked about this when the whole thing of Brady to the Raiders, is he doing another smokescreen like how he's trying to do with Miami? Is it a thing? Now, there appears to be more indication that could be a thing. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, there's a lot of pressure on them. A lot of primetime games, a lot of pressure, a lot of over-unders. A lot of people taking the over on team wins with the Jets. A lot of people are believing. Was on with the homie Greg Larner today on ESPN Chattanooga in Tennessee, and he's pretty adamant that he thinks the Jets are going to win the division. I'm not there yet, but with DeAndre Hopkins being available, the Jets were pressed today about whether they're going to be in the mix for DeAndre Hopkins. We'll talk about it. There is some Philadelphia 76ers tea. If the Beard leaves, who could Philly turn to? We have some indications of where they might be looking. It involves a team that just lost a coach. It involves who the Sixers just hired as their head coach. Ties to that player, ties to that coach. All right. This will be a quick stream today. We're probably just gonna go an hour. I have some appointments I cannot miss. So we'll probably go an hour and a half tops. So whether you're catching this live on a replay, y'all know what to do. Hit that like button. Do appreciate that. If you have not subscribed and you want to support the content, support the channel, support the brand, subscribing definitely does do that. All right. Let's get right into it. You see the headline, Tom Brady, future Raiders owner and QB. The NFL says it's possible, courtesy of TMZ Sports. Let's get to the gist of it. 2 NFL-wide votes would need to happen in order for Brady to be a part of the Las Vegas ownership group and be under center at the same time. Okay. So, can Tom Brady be an owner of a team and still play quarterback for that team? It takes 2 NFL-wide votes to make it happen. The first vote is a 3/4 of the league would have to approve his acquisition of a piece of Mark Davis's franchise. So basically 3/4 of the league would have to approve that he could become a owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. After that, there would have to be a second vote, also 3/4 of the league would then need to vote on whether or not Tom Brady would be allowed to play. 3/4 is a really good percentage. Okay, that's about what, 24-ish teams? You need 24, low 20s for Brady to be able to pull up and still be a quarterback while being a part owner of a team. Now, let's be clear. This is what he was trying to do in Miami. Never forget, this was the ploy in Miami when he walked away from Tampa Bay and gave that, pseudo retirement that was really just a retirement for the Bucks. But then the blue check boy Adam Schefter thought he was retiring from the whole league, and Patriots fans got mad because it was like, well, how come Tom Brady didn't mention us in his retirement? He's won all those chips with us. How come he didn't mention us? It's because he was not trying to retire from the league. He was only walking away from Tampa Bay. Now, the scheme was unearthed. Brian Flores, rightfully so, accused the Dolphins of collusion, tampering, tanking, all of that stuff that was known to be factual. And Brady had a sweetheart deal waiting for him with the Miami Dolphins because he's alumnus with Stephen Ross. It's a whole Michigan thing they got going on there, and Brady going to Michigan, and the owner of the team, Stephen Ross, being a Michigan alum, they were keeping it in the family, the amazing blue family. Brady was going to retire from the Bucs, take a job in the front office, high-level executive position with the Dolphins, get a piece of the team, then unretire, work out compensation with the Bucs so that his rights as a player could be released to the Dolphins, and then he was going to be able to spin the block and be under center for the Miami Dolphins. That was a real thing that was going to happen. But because of Brian Flores and, him airing out the dirty laundry about them wanting to tank, about wrongfully being dismissed, wrongful termination, that got blown to smithereens. So then Brady had to play one last year with the Bucs. He finishes out that one last year with the Bucs. The team was not the same. He was not the same. He was going through things with Giselle. Now he officially retires, only to run the same scheme again, this time with the Raiders. What are we doing here, Tom? You have to own it and be a player? Is that the only way you feel you can get your equity? Maybe if you didn't take all those pay cuts with the Patriots for all them years, maybe you would think you've gotten your just due. But you foolishly believed in the Patriots way for all those years when you kept taking pay cuts. Now you're out here where I got to be an owner if I'm going to play again. I got to own a piece of the team. If I'm going to bring in all this revenue with jersey sales, ticket sales, and whatnot, I need to own a piece so I can at least get some of that valuation on the back end. And now we have the Raiders, which is one of the most cash poorest teams in the sport. Mark Davis gladly giving up a piece to Tom Brady. Bring in some of that cash flow. We need some of it. Couldn't even afford to keep Derek Carr because we're so cash poor. Couldn't even keep Darren Waller because we're so cash poor. Let's go ahead and bring in some of that Tom Brady GOAT TB12 avocado ice cream bread. Let's go ahead and do it. Will the league, with 2 votes, be able to allow Tom Brady to own a percentage of the Las Vegas Raiders and play for them? This could potentially be a game-changing move here, because if you're a team and you really want to be able to allow a player empowerment, this is it. Brady is very aware of what Bron and guys in the NBA have done with player empowerment. And with the rise of player empowerment in the NBA, this is what spawned Tom Brady to make the moves he's made post-Patriots career. To where I'm going to walk away from the Patriots, and I'm not just going to bounce around from team to team. I'm going to go to a team that is ready-made to win, that is going to help me age gracefully. And he did that with Tampa Bay, where they had Godwin and Mike Evans already. He convinced, Gronk to come out of retirement. He convinced AB, moved him into his crib to get him to act right so they could get her another ring. Convinced Leonard Fournette to come in and be just a free agent back. He made all this happen with player empowerment. He commanded such because he's seen what dudes in the NBA have been able to do. Now, then he tried it again with the Miami thing. Player empowerment. I'm just going to fake retire and then unretire, take a job in the front office with another team because me and him went to the same college. And then I'm just going to unretire. I'm just going to, resign from that position. I'm still going to own a piece of the team. And then I'm going to get my old team to transfer the rights to my playing contract to my new team. And then I'm just going to unretire and just play for this new team while I own a piece of the team. They already had Tua, and they were going to do this. So Brady was going to wash Tua up out of here or relegate him to the bench for a couple of years while he does what he wants to do at the tail end of his career. And the Dolphins brass and front office were more than willing to do it, especially with a geriatric owner who wants one chip before he checks out of here. Now we got Tom Brady trying to run the same scheme, spinning the block again, now with the Las Vegas Raiders. A franchise who you can't imagine how are they cash poor. With all the merch sales, hell, even just from the 90s alone with NWA and rap in general, how are the Raiders not one of the most wealthy franchises just in revenue? What were the splits on the starter jackets back in the day? How can the Raiders be so cash poor? When they were the LA Raiders, how were they cash poor? Don't get it. Just absolutely don't get it. So now we have the lay of the land. He needs to get 2 votes. Both times he needs to get 3/4 approval of the entire league. The first piece would have to approve his acquisition of a piece of the Raiders. The second, the same 3/4 would have to then vote on whether or not he'd be allowed to play. If both votes passed, and it doesn't feel like there'd be much opposition to either, this is the interesting part to me. You mean that the NFL, which won't allow fully guaranteed contracts, is now going to allow a player to own a piece of a team and play? But they don't want to give up fully guaranteed contracts to these players? But you're going to allow a dude to parachute out the sky from retirement, buy a piece of a team, and let him still play? But a fully guaranteed contract, oh, no. Can't do that. Lamar Jackson wants fully guaranteed money. No, can't do that. Deshaun Watson gets fully guaranteed money. This is the worst day in the NFL. Make it make sense. What is happening here? Where Tom Brady can walk in, get a piece of a team, you'd rather give up actual equity in your billion-dollar valuation rather than pay players fully guaranteed money that's coming out of money you already have in escrow that's disposable income. I don't understand the logic here. You're willing to give up money on the back end, the actual Forbes valuation of the team, but you're not willing to give up money you have in escrow that's got to be spent anyway? Someone who's an economy major, hit me up and let me know how that makes sense, how that's logical, how that's fair, how that's moral, how that's ethical. Because the math is not mathing to me. But this is where we're at with Tom Brady. And then it goes into, of course, he said again in February, he's done playing. But, just last week, or this week actually, Troy Aikman said it wouldn't surprise him to see Brady unretire for a second time. And that's kind of the thing. This is the worst kept secret. It's the worst kept secret. Once the Miami thing blew up, and it was bubbling for a minute, so people were aware of it. People, especially down there in Miami, people in and around Miami were fully aware of Tom Brady circling and trying to figure out a way to get a piece of the Dolphins and then play for the Dolphins. And then we got the scheme unearthed once the Brian Flores stuff came out. Then, that got blown to smithereens. He has to go to Tampa, finish out one mid-year with the Bucks. Then he retires for good, only to spin the block again and try to run the same scheme again. I would just love to know how this is possible. That's all. I just want to know, how can he pull this off? The NFLPA is one of the weakest unions in all sports, if not the weakest union in all professional sports. Yet one of their brethren is going to be able to walk in off the street and get a piece of a team and play for that said team. Because the part about what needs to happen isn't the issue here. The part is that, according to this reporting, and again, it's TMZ Sports, so take it for what you will, it doesn't feel like there'd be much opposition. What? Can you imagine if Lamar asked for a piece of the Ravens? I mean, the Ravens got an owner who is telling the world to pray for him and them as a franchise just for entertaining the fact of working out Colin Kaepernick. But Brady's going to be able to walk in off the street to a cash-poor franchise in the Las Vegas Raiders, cash out, and still play for them and pocket that valuation on the back end. Can't make this shit up, man. All right, that's that. It's really just a really weird story. I don't understand how that's happening, but here we are. Okay, so let's move over to the Jets. The Jets allegedly out on DeAndre Hopkins. Now we'll start with your man's Robert Saleh. And like I mentioned, I was on with the homie Greg Larnard earlier today, and we were going over, he had a question on the show in regards to what teams have the longest droughts in terms of winning their division. And the Jets were one of the teams that have, one of the largest droughts in terms of winning their division. So with DeAndre Hopkins available and being a free agent, recently being outright released by the Arizona Cardinals, the Jets, who were not on his wish list, I guess those in the New York media asked Robert Saleh, hey, well, do you intend to sign or pursue wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins? Let's go to the sound.
You guys were in on Odell when he was a free agent. DeAndre Hopkins, now another veteran receiver, still pretty good, is available. Is that something you guys intend on pursuing, or are you happy with your current receiving core and that's not an avenue you're going to go down?
No.
It's such a bad question. Again, we were talking about length of questions yesterday. 15 seconds to ask Robert Saleh, are you going to sign or pursue DeAndre Hopkins? And again, he gave the coach the answer in the question. I know you probably love your current group. Well, then what else you going to say if you're Robert Saleh? So let's go ahead and hear the answer that was practically given to Robert Saleh by the questionnaire.
Now, we love our current group.
No shit.
I know
you gave him the answer.
There was some stuff with Odell, but other than that, we love our group.
You guys were in on
just listen to the question again.
When he was a free agent. DeAndre Hopkins, now another veteran receiver, still pretty good, is available. Is that something you guys intend on pursuing, or?
Right there, stop. Even that was too long. That's 12 seconds. But then you continue to give him the preamble here at the end, which is very leading and allows him out right away.
Are you happy with your current receiving core?
I know you're happy with your current receiving core.
That's not an avenue you're going to go down.
Now, we love our current group.
Journalism.
I know there was some stuff with Odell, but...
There wasn't just some stuff with Odell, Robert. What happened was the QB you just mortgaged the future for had a wish list. A wish list you, your whole organization, and Aaron Rodgers himself have denied. So is this a low-key admission that the wish list existed? You see, I know there was some stuff with Odell. Is he saying there was some media stuff? Is he saying there was some fabricated stuff? Or is he saying, no, there was some legit stuff because Aaron Rodgers had Odell Beckham on that wish list?
Other than that, we love our group.
Okay, so the Jets are out on DeAndre Hopkins as of right now. Maybe one of their receivers, you don't want to wish injury upon anybody, but the teams are losing players already. Just in OTAs and workouts and all this stuff, involuntary workouts. Like, players are falling already. So if he's still out there and the receiver goes down, that might be a thing in the mix. But as we talk about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, we'll use that to pivot to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers apparently wanted the Packers to trade or fire their GM in 2021, so 2 years ago. Trade or fire their GM. Again, we just talked about Tom Brady and player empowerment. Here's more of an example of player empowerment. Aaron Rodgers wanted the Packers to trade or fire their GM in 2021. In the 7 years from 2015 to 2021, Green Bay had 7 first-round picks. They drafted 6 defensive players and Aaron Rodgers' replacement and quarterback Jordan Love. So yes, that's why Aaron Rodgers wanted the GM to be traded or fired. Literally all you've done is draft defense and my eventual replacement. You're not helping me, dogs. But we use that to pivot to here. So, and you see that is basically a report of the same headline we just read. But the main thing we want to get into is a piece from this article that was written about it. According to a source associated let me move this over so y'all can see that. There we go. According to a source associated with the team who was granted anonymity to candidly discuss the sensitive dynamics between the front office and star quarterback early in the 2021 season, Dunn, Aaron Rodgers' agent, called Packers president Mark Murphy with a request. Fire, I believe that's Gutekunst, or trade Rodgers. Okay, so now the wording of this tweet is different. Because this indicates trade or fire their GM. And I thought that was weird wording because I'm like, how can you trade a GM? So now it's not necessarily that. It's Aaron Rodgers wanted the Packers to trade him or fire their GM in 2021. So now that we got that clear, fire Gutekunst or trade Rodgers. Murphy did neither. Months later, news broke that Rodgers wanted out of Green Bay, but the Packers held firm. When asked about the demand last week, Rodgers deferred to Dunn, who did not reply to the Athletic's request for comment. So basically, Aaron Rodgers, much like Tom Brady, wanted his player empowerment, and he was not able to get it. Not until this past offseason, and he had to play 2 more seasons to get there. Now he's on a team that has a lot of primetime games, that has a lot of, pomp and circumstance, that has a lot of high-profile young players. And they're, in theory, a quarterback away from being significant contenders in the NFL. But the problem is that the Jets have, one of the hardest strength of schedules in the entire league, in a division that also has the strongest and hardest strength of schedule in the entire league. So as much as on paper, this seems like the Jets should be a team that can, be a favorite for this division with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, if he's still to the caliber of what he was no more than 2 seasons ago when he was coming off another back-to-back MVP. If that's not the case, then yeah, this could be a really weird experiment. It's going to take time for this whole thing to come together. This is not going to be a quick fix with the Jets. And I think there's a lot of indications that this is just going to be automatic because we got Rodgers, we got Garrett Wilson, we got McCall Hardman, we got Lazard, we brought in Randall Cobb, we're bringing in all of his guys except for Mercedes Lewis as of right now. Then it should be away we go. Not the case. You have a tough division. The Bills and the Dolphins are not for play. The Bills could end up with DeAndre Hopkins and walk out there with Diggs and Hopkins to go along with Knox, Kincaid, James Cook, and still Josh Allen, even though he's a turnover machine. Then you have the Dolphins with all the weapons they have. If they can keep, Tua Tagovailoa upright and unconcussed, they were in the mix last year. They were a high-profile, high-scoring offensive machine last year. There's no reason to think that they're going to come back to earth. They should still be out of here, one of the top-tier offenses in this league. So this division, this AFC East is not going to be easy for Aaron Rodgers just to show up and parachute in, and all of a sudden, they're just out here easy 12-5. No. Strength of schedule, toughness of division, and just the fact that you're a QB going to a new conference with a whole new team remnants of a system you used to play in, yes, but this is not a guaranteed thing that the Jets are just going to walk out there and be 12-5, 13-4. Okay, let's see what we got. We'll stay in the NFL. The 49ers are giving QB Trey Lance, quote, all the first team reps at OTAs over Sam Darnold. Darnold worked with the second team group. This shouldn't really be that shocking. Nothing about Sam Darnold makes you think in 2023, we want to make him the starter. Nothing about Sam Darnold in the year 2023 makes me want to see him be out there with Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, C-Mac, and on and on and on. Nothing about that. We've seen next to nothing of Trey Lance. I need to see that with that dynamic set of playmakers that the 49ers have. This could potentially be one of the most dangerous offenses in the entire league if Trey Lance is 75% of what he was hyped to be. All right, let's see where we're at here. We could go to NBA. Told you this will be a quick stream today. We're only going to do an hour. I got to make some moves and make some things happen. But let's see. So the Philadelphia 76ers, there's a lot of tea on them. They just hired Nick Nurse. I'm not the biggest Nick Nurse guy. We can get into the breakdown of if Nick Nurse is actually good at his job and how that team played and looked after Kawhi Leonard left, after he got them that one chip. But now that he's in Philadelphia and he's officially the Philadelphia 76ers new head coach, of course, he wants to bring some of his people with him. So here's a report. The 76ers are targeting Fred VanVleet in case James Harden leaves in free agency. Now, this isn't that big of a shock. You know, Fred VanVleet is a Raptor. Nick Nurse was, coaching the Raptors this past season over the extension of Fred VanVleet becoming a max player. Nick Nurse has been paramount into empowering Fred VanVleet. So it's not a shock that the Raptors, who are clearly trying to break it all down, Masai Ujiri, who at one point in time was one of those can't miss executives, not only because of the chip with Kawhi Leonard, but just the way that he was able to draft and get guys that were unheralded to, some would say, outperform their rankings, like a Siakam, like a Fred VanVleet, like a OG Anunoby. Like, these are guys that were not household names, and they have turned into those because of the Raptors. Masai Ujiri was thought to be one of those guys who is like a Bob Myers, who is like a, I guess you can put Popovich when he was running the front office out there in San Antonio. Like, he was thought to be a high caliber like that. The bloom has kind of come off that rose for Masai Ujiri. And I think Nick Nurse, the bloom also came off that rose. So now Masai Ujiri is in position to maybe offload all those assets. Fred VanVleet, I believe, is available. Pascal Siakam is available. OG Anunoby, in the right deal, is available. Scotty Barnes, I doubt. But those three, the vets that were there when they won the chip, I believe in the right deals, Masai Ujiri would break it all down and rebuild around Scotty Barnes. So now, if the Beard leaves and all signs point to James Harden leaving to spin the block to go back to the Houston Rockets, is a VanVleet, Joel Embiid thing any better? Because let's go ahead and take a look at what Fred VanVleet put up last year. Who paid attention to Fred VanVleet last year outside of maybe fantasy numbers or maybe some betting? So we have Fred VanVleet, 19 points, 7 assists, under 40% from the floor. That is not good. 34% from three. That is right below league average. Effective field goal percentage, under fit. Like, he is below all of his career numbers. In terms of percentages, he's below all his career numbers, well, outside of free throw or whatever, but interesting to see how that goes. Is there anything we could pinpoint with Fred VanVleet? As a three-point shooter, again, this is the Kawhi year, and we looked at Pascal Siakam's numbers. Yo, that Kawhi effect, I may have to do a deep dive, a whole separate video in the summer and just examine how good all the other Raptors were just because Kawhi was there. This Kawhi effect is real, bro. Like, look at this, 2018, 2019. Okay, 2018, 2019. This is when he was coming off the bench, right? Yeah, he was a bench guy. So he got that Kawhi bump, that Kawhi stimulus, and then he was able to capitalize and go crazy the next year as a starter. I mean, his numbers have increased, but the percentages have not been consistent. But he takes a lot of threes. God damn, I didn't know he takes this many threes. 9 threes a game? I mean, 37%, 38%. So the last 2 years, the 2 years prior to this past season, he showed you what he could be. He's taking damn near 10 threes a game, and he's making them at above league average. That's acceptable. The problem is that he's not really giving you that much anywhere else. Yeah, he's giving you some 6, 7 dimes, but I don't really count him as a real point guard. He was thought to be a capable defender. Let's see if that's still the case. Defensive rating, can y'all see that? Let's see. No, y'all cannot see that. So let me bring that in just a wee bit. Okay, can y'all see that now? Yeah, you guys should be able to see that. All right, cool. So y'all see it. Nope, don't want that. 114 defensive rating, that's not great. 111 is not great. Anything over 110 to me is just not good. So 106, 106. So his first year as a starter, he was 106. Yeah, so even the Kawhi year off the bench, he was a 110. It's not great. So that first year he became a starter, he really went crazy. 106. As a starter, 106, that's really good in the league. So what happened here to where he's fallen off so much defensively? Because you've seen offensively, he's remained roughly the same. But the defense has clearly taken a hit. What's the issue here? Is it usage rate? Let's see, usage rate. Okay, so off the bench, he had an 18 usage rate. He became a starter, 22, 24, 24. I mean, this is not even that high of a usage rate. So then who's controlling the rock in Toronto? That's interesting to me, because if it ain't him, then who is it? Siakam? Scotty? Let me see Siakam. Let me see Siakam's usage rate. Siakam's a 27. 30 is when you get to be like, oh, this person is ball dominant. So Siakam is getting close. Can't be OG. I refuse to believe it's OG. It can't be OG. Just his shooting. 19, yeah, it's not OG. So it can't be Scott. He's too young. $20. No, so it's Siakam. So Siakam's the most ball dominant player on that roster in that starting lineup. That's probably very telling. For a team that's been struggling to find success post Kawhi, they really thought they had a new Kawhi or a Kawhi light in Pascal Siakam, and it just hasn't happened. As you see, like the minute Kawhi is out of there, you know, they win 58 games. The next season they win 53, but they lost in the second round. Then another year, really bad, 27-45. That's how they get Scotty Barnes. They were above 500 once they got their healthy guys back there, but they go out in the first round to the Sixers. And then this past year, Didn't even make the playoffs. Yeah, Masai Ujiri's going to have to explain himself, and that roster is not that great. And he had made a great draft pick in Scotty Barnes. But in regards to trying to understand how to get to that next level, I don't know what you give up if you're the Philadelphia 76ers and you're trying to get Fred VanVleet. I don't believe he's a free agent. I believe VanVleet still's got at least a year left on his deal, if not multiple. He's a trade candidate. I don't believe he's a free agent. Let's just double check, though. Fred VanVleet. Contract. Signed 2016, signs a free agent, multi-year contract. Oh, he has a player option. Oh, so then, oh, okay. So he can turn down this option and become a free agent. Okay, so then, yeah, they can do something with Fred VanVleet in case the beer does leave. It's not a trade. How much are you willing to pay Fred VanVleet? I'm not trying to pay that much, to be quite honest with you, because I don't know how much better you're going to be. He's not as dynamic as James Harden. He doesn't command the attention as James Harden. His defense isn't that much better, if at all, than James Harden. I'm not sure where the upgrade is, just besides the fact that it's not James Harden. So you don't have the reputation of a guy that just continuously comes up rather smallish in a big spot. But I don't know if we had that much proof that Fred VanVleet comes up huge in the biggest of spots. When they won a championship with Kawhi, he was coming off the bench. So I don't know what you're asking for if you're going out there and, Fred VanVleet turns down the player option and he's a free agent. I don't know what you're asking from him. Now, Nick Nurse obviously knows how to use him, but I don't know if that works with Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid needs to be careful because Nick Nurse, as we could go over these same Raptors, he has a tendency to work players in terms of minutes. And for a guy like Joel Embiid, I don't know if that's the type of guy you want to play for. And I'm sure he was consulted. I'm not sure if he was asked to give the green light per se, but I'm sure he was consulted. But your first year as head coach, when you had Kawhi, you were NBA champions. Since then, it's been, that same core that next year, so that's fine. But since then, it's been mediocre, to keep it a buck. Mediocre. So I don't know. This was not the sexy hire. It was surprising to some people that Nick Nurse was let go by the Raptors, but it wasn't for me because the team has kind of been struggling and losing its identity. And Masai Ujiri, there's been rumors about Masai Ujiri bouncing from that franchise for years, but I'm not sure if I'm, all that enthralled if I'm Joel Embiid. All right, so we got that story out the way. Get into some basketball talk. We'll take it to as close to the top of the hour as possible, so 5 p.m., just an hour today. So with, there's a report about LeBron. Everyone's wondering about LeBron. Will he come back? Won't he come back? If he does come back and he doesn't want to be a Laker, where will he go? The Knicks have been talked about as favorites. The Cavaliers have been talked about as being favorites. Yada, yada, yada. Now, there's another report today via The Athletic. I'd say there's about a 10% chance LeBron James isn't back as a Laker next season, either due to retirement or playing for another team. So it's not really giving us too much of an update. It's just, now we have a number. But again, this is pure speculation. I'm not saying there's no reporting behind it, but this is purely just going off of sourcing, which can be fugazi. So take it as you will. Is there a 10% chance? Sure. That means it's 90% chance that he is back as a Laker next season. So take it from whatever perspective you want to. But if someone's telling me there's a 10% chance, I'd rather go with the 90%. Let's see. What else can we get into? There's more stuff here when it comes to football we could get into. So let's come off that. Did that go away? Yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So Patrick Mahomes, remember who his owner said is severely underpaid and will forever be underpaid. If Patrick Mahomes and his agent, who I believe is Lee Steinberg, a legendary name in NFL agents and just agents as a whole, he's trying to get him some more money and bigger money and longer money and maybe even guaranteed money. How this stat isn't put on the table in the negotiations, I have no idea. Patrick Mahomes has started 80 games. The Chiefs have only lost 2 of them by more than 1 score. 2 of 80. Let me run that back for you. Patrick Mahomes has started 80 games. The Chiefs have only lost 2 of them by more than 1 score. 2 of 80. By far the best rate we've seen in NFL history. His ceiling is the best in the NFL. His floor is such that even in his worst games, he keeps his team competitive. All right? So there's a lot going on there. Welcome in, Boogie Down. It's a light crowd today, but welcome in. What happened with the Brady stuff? I could run back most of it. Let me see. I'll just do a synopsis. I'll show you the headline. So there it is. So to sum it up real quick, or just to kind of run it down concisely, Tom Brady is pulling the same trick he was trying to do with the Dolphins. Okay? So if you remember, Tom Brady was out here while he was still the Bucs, while he was still a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and he did the whole goodbye letter thing, and the blue check boy Adam Schefter ran with it and said Brady was retiring from the entire league, even though in reality he was just retiring from Tampa Bay. It was a ploy just to get out of Tampa because he had a deal to go to Miami because the owner went to Michigan like him. Okay, so you remember all that? So obviously that got blown up with the Brian Flores stuff about, wrongful termination, asking him to lose games on purpose, all that stuff. So all that got blown out the water with the investigation with the Brian Flores lawsuit. Well, Brady's trying to run it back again. Okay, so now he's trying to run that same scam, that same scheme, that same plan, this time with the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Vegas Raiders, he has agreed to buy a portion of the team, and he's investigating how he can still play for the team while he owns the team. And yes, it is actually possible to own a piece of a team and still play for that team. What needs to happen? What needs to happen is that it's going to be 2 votes. It's going to be the first vote that requires 3/4 league approval, just for him to buy a piece of the team, in this case, the Raiders, right? So once that vote is done and he's approved to own a piece of the team, there then will be a second vote, where the second vote will basically be on whether or not Tom Brady can play in the NFL while owning a piece of the Raiders. So it's essentially a case-by-case basis. In theory, he could be approved to own a piece of the Raiders and play for the Raiders. Well, let's say if for whatever reason the Ravens would have given Lamar Jackson a piece of the Ravens, he could be denied to be able to play for the Ravens while owning a piece of the Ravens. So if you follow that. So it is technically possible for Tom Brady to come back and unretire again, own a piece of the Raiders, and play for them. So that's where we're at with Brady. This is a real thing. He's trying to come back. And this runs it down, but the 3/4 of the league would have to approve his acquisition of a piece of Mark Davis's franchise. That's the Raiders. The second, again, 3/4 of the league would have to then vote on whether or not he'd be allowed to play. And this is the best part of it. And this is where, if I'm the NFLPA, I'm sending this in the biggest group chat to the entire league. If both votes passed, keyword there, both, and it doesn't feel like there'd be much opposition to either. So that means, in theory, a spokesperson for the NFL is saying that if both votes passed and it doesn't feel like there'd be much opposition to either, Brady would then be free to help out the Raiders in the front office and on the field. So again, if I'm the NFLPA, I am loading up the biggest group chat and I am firing this off. Because I don't ever want to hear about we can't get fully guaranteed contracts ever again. Because if you're letting a player unretire and own a piece of a team and play, then you better run me that Deshaun Watson money. Because if you're willing to allow a player to own a piece of a team and collect a salary, so he's getting both. He has money invested, earning revenue, earning ROI, and he's getting an actual paycheck as an employee of the team. Now, I've been a part of companies that have given you stock options, but this is different. This is owning a percentage of $1 billion operation, and a healthy percentage. This isn't like stock options at your company where everyone's getting such a small microfracture that it doesn't really amount to much in comparison to the CEO. He's literally owning a piece of what Mark Davis owns. This ain't Jay-Z with the Nets. He's owning a piece of the team and drawing a check. No one sees the issue here. And the thing is that they're saying it doesn't feel like there'd be much opposition to either. So to him owning the team, that's whatever. But little to no opposition to him owning the team and playing for it? And Boogie Down, you missed it earlier, but I was saying, yo, what if Lamar would have said, I want to own a piece of the Ravens? Like, that's part of my negotiation. I want to own a piece of the Ravens because outside of Ray Lewis, who's him but me for this organization? So I want a piece of the Ravens and I want my check. Give me my 260 whatever million and a percentage on the back end. And the league would have had to approve it. You know damn well the league won't even give them guaranteed money. But somehow Tom Brady's going to walk in here and not only get to invest money and get ROI and be part of a valuation of $1 billion entity, but then he's going to be able to draw a check as an employee from that same entity? That's one of the biggest double dips in history. But for Lamar, it would have been that's too much dip on his chip. But Brady's going to be able to pull this off. If I'm DeMaurice Smith in the NFLPA, you got to look at this with a side eye. Now, you want it to happen. But then once this happens, it's open season. You can't tell Justin Herbert, don't take fully guaranteed money. But if you do, okay, then I want a percentage of the Chargers. Tom did it. Patrick Mahomes, they're renegotiating his contract. His owner has already told him, you are underpaid. There is no way we can financially, in salary, pay you your worth. Okay, you know how you fix that? Give me 5%. 5% of the Chiefs. Then you could give me whatever bloated, funny money contract you want. You already said I'm underpaid. You already said there's no way for you to monetize my actual value. You know how we could get a lot closer to that monetized actual value, cutting me in ownership. This right here is going to be a thing if it happens. This is one of those watershed moments. What Kirk Cousins did and the league didn't, and the rest of the players didn't follow, I think if Brady gets this off, if I'm Mahomes, if I'm Justin Herbert, if I'm Joe Burrow, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, this is now the blueprint. And they have to stand up to their representation, because of course their representation is going to try to talk them out of it, because they got relationships with all these teams and all these owners. They're not just working independently for that one player. They got relationships throughout the league and players throughout the league. So it benefits them if the league is happy. It doesn't benefit them if all you got is Justin Herbert and you're riding everything every single day for Justin Herbert. The players have to be willing, Mahomes included, to stand up and say, okay, if you let Brady get this off, and the Hunt family has openly and publicly said, I am underpaid and there is no path they see of how I could ever be paid to my value, then cut me in. Boogie down. Bro, no one wants to see Brady play anymore. I don't want to see him play, but I want to see him get this off. I told you, I like chaos. I like chaos. And when it comes to this money shit, and when it comes to labor, that's my bag. So even though I agree with you, no one truly wants to see him play anymore, I hope he gets this off, because there will be a domino effect if he can get this off. I truly believe that. There will be a domino effect. If you're Mahomes, your boss said to the world, you're underpaid. If you're Justin Herbert, they know they got to pay you X amount of bread because it's your turn. Joe Burrow, same thing. Trevor Lawrence, soon come. And y'all tell me I can't get what type of bread I want? Then okay, you need to cough up some equity. The NFLPA, D. Morris Smith. Don't forget what John Gruden called you in them emails. Sometimes the easiest thing is right there in front of you. It is right there in front of you, bruh. You should be pushing for Brady to get this off. Just like he was trying to push Lamar to go for the Deshaun Watson contract. Ultimately, it didn't work out. But D. Morris Smith should be pushing for Brady to get this off. He should be campaigning for Brady like he's the president. He should be campaigning hard as hell for Brady to be able to be an owner and still play. Because then that opens the door for others to do the same. And while I don't care if Tom Brady plays next year, I want this to happen because now the young QBs have another thing they can leverage in negotiations. But Gideon just needs to give it up. He's clearly not. And there's always going to be a team willing to put him out there because he's a draw. Whether he's good or not doesn't even really matter. He's a draw. He's going to sell jerseys. He's going to sell ticket plans. It doesn't matter. And that's why he has leverage. That's why he has leverage, because he can go out there and leverage his name, his likeness, his aura, all of that, and get a piece of a team and still play for it. Now, Daniel Jones can't get this off. Kirk Cousins can't get this off. But I think Patrick Mahomes could get this off. Because why not? What's the reason why he can't? Why would the Chiefs say no to cutting in Mahomes on the back end? You're already willing to pay him $500 million. Now, over 10 years with some funny money incentives mixed in, but you were willing to pay Mahomes $500 million. Why wouldn't you cut him in on a piece? If the Raiders could do it, why can't the Chiefs? Especially when the Chiefs have said, there is no way possible for us to pay you your worth, Patrick. We can give you $500 million. We could give you $750 million. It still doesn't equate to the value you have given us owning this thing. Okay, Mr. Hunt, you know what we gonna do then? You need to cut me in on that thing. And because I'm him, I'm going to stand firm and demand a piece of that thing. Because that will get me closer to getting my evaluation rather than you backloading contracts 10, 15 years into my future. I could cash out on that ROI in equity in this team right now. You can say that, but it don't matter. They make up the majority of the base anyway. So that's a plus. So yeah, Boogie Down, that doesn't matter to us. That doesn't matter to the NFL. They want that. So as long as that statement is true, he will always have a job. So that's exactly why he should be able to go in there and get a piece of the team. And let's be clear, Mahomes ain't that far from that. He's held in that same regard. So again, if you're telling me you paid me $500 million, but I'm underpaid, then okay, run me my bread in ownership. Let's get the league to do a 3/4 vote for Patrick Mahomes to own a piece of the Chiefs and play for them. Good luck with that. Appreciate those pulling up. I appreciate it if you would drop a like. The algorithm likes that, so therefore I do as well. We're talking about Tom Brady. Tom Brady is trying to come back yet again. Tom Brady is trying to spin the block yet again. He tried this with Miami. Brian Flores took care of that and blew it up out the water. Stephen Ross was a Michigan alumni, the owner of the Dolphins. Brady, obviously a Michigan alumnus. So they were trying to run an amazing blue scheme down there in South Beach and Collins and Biscayne. That got blown up by Brian Flores. Now, since that got blown up, he had to, walk back to Tampa Bay and finish out that last year. Now he's trying to spin the block and unretire, get a piece of the Raiders, unretire, and play for the Raiders. Y'all want to see this? I only want to see it because I know this is chaos. And I know this could be future leverage for the young QBs coming behind Brady once he's actually done, if ever he's actually done. But this is where things can really go left. Like, this is where you have to think outside the box. This is player empowerment to a new degree. Can you imagine if Bron could own a piece of the Lakers? I'm sure it's been a conversation. Can you imagine if KD could have gotten a piece of the Nets when he leveraged that deal? Can you imagine if Giannis, the Nigerian freak, Antetokounmpo, ran up on ownership and was like, if you don't cut me in, trade me to the Warriors? You don't think Steph Curry could own a piece of the Warriors? We got, Joe Lacob, who's about to promote his own son to replace Bob Myers as the head of that organization. You don't think Steph Curry has done more for that organization than Joe Lacob's son, who's about to be, in theory, Steph Curry's boss? Who deserves a cut of Warrior ownership? Steph Curry or Joe Lacob's kid? Like, this is real right here. This is real shit right here. And that's why I'm locked in on it, because to me, this has potential game-changing, this could have a game-changing effect on sports as we know it. But again, it takes these players, and specifically NFL players in this case, to stand tall. And that's not something they're accustomed to doing. Every chance they've had to stand up to these owners, they've given it up. Every CBA, they give up something. They wanted a little bit more money. So, no, they wanted weed. So they had to lose guaranteed contracts, and they had to give up the fact of it's going to soon be an 18-game schedule. Like, the players constantly lose. They chose weed over actual money on the table. If they ever stood tall once, they could make this happen. Boogie down. Did you touch on Hopkins yet? Yeah, dog. I did a whole show, bro. I've been going on for over an hour now. I'm about to get up out of here in a little bit. But yeah, dog, we did Hopkins. The Jets don't want him. The Jets don't want him. We played sound for Robert Saleh. You can see the quote here. Basically, a reporter asked him, because they were in on Odell. And we got a little bit of an admission from Robert Saleh that there was some stuff going on with Odell. Basically, this to me means that wish list was true, that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets have been denying was true. Aaron Rodgers did have a wish list. Odell was on that wish list. Obviously, Odell is with the Ravens now, but DeAndre Hopkins is now available. But Robert Saleh is saying they love their current group, but they're not going to pursue DeAndre Hopkins. So that's where we're at with that. Okay, so where are we now? Let's see. It's a few more things I touched on. You missed Trey Lance. The 49ers are giving quarterback Trey Lance all, quote here, the most important word, all the first team reps at OTAs over Sam Darnold, which is an obvious thing and should be the clear-cut thing, because who in the hell wants to see Sam Darnold throwing the ball to George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey? That's not, as much as Shanahan thinks he's a QB genius and QB guru, even he doesn't want to see that week one. So, of course, he's giving Trey Lance every opportunity to fail by letting him get all the first-team reps, because that's what they want to be the starter. And then if Brock Purdy could pull up at some point early in the year and Trey Lance is floundering, I can easily see them going to Brock Purdy before they go to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is just a warm body. It's Trey Lance and or Brock Purdy's job to lose. Boogie down. Hopkins is low-key washed. He not that dude no more. He better tuck his price. He better tuck his pride and lower that asking price. If Odell's walking around here getting 15 mil, how much you think DeAndre Hopkins should ask for? Because that was the thing we looked at yesterday. There was an article we were referencing yesterday, and there was some discussion about how much DeAndre Hopkins has left. And there was a mixed bag in regards to the anonymous executives that were quoted in this story. One exec was pretty much on your top of time, Boogie Down, and said he can't run anymore, whatever. Then there was another one like, no, he's still good. He's not going to run a good deep route, but he can still run good routes. And then there was a third that was like, it's a mixed bag. He's got a little bit of a diva in him, so on and so forth. So I think ultimately it depends on what you're asking from DeAndre Hopkins. If you're asking DeAndre Hopkins to be, at his peak 4 years ago when he was in Houston, then yeah, you're fooling yourself. But if you're asking DeAndre Hopkins to come in and be a guy that can get you first downs, can run post corners, can run sluggos and still get open, not wide ass open. I think those days are gone. And again, I don't think Corey's in here today, but Corey and I were chopping it up, and he made a good point. A guy coming off PEDs, you don't know how that's going to look. And I'm not going to say he looked bad once he got back from suspension because of the PEDs, but he certainly didn't look to be peak D-Hop. And maybe he's just not peak D-Hop no more. But it would be interesting to see him having a full year back on his own regimen, assuming no PED nonsense, and seeing what he's got left. This is a guy that's not too far removed from like a 1,500 yard season. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's washed, but I do think there is some things to be weary of as a guy that's getting older and a guy that's coming off a PED suspension. But if you're asking him to be a clear-cut number one, like he's going to be your deep threat, he's going to be all of that, then yeah, no. That man is not that. That man is not that. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we'll do one last check of the timeline before we head up out. I appreciate y'all for pulling up. If you missed anything, you can go ahead and check the replay. But let me see. Nope, the Aaron Rodgers stuff that we discussed already. Yeah, there's not that much going on. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to do a big NBA Finals preview on tomorrow's stream. We'll save that for tomorrow. There's some sports media stuff as well. McAfee, the numbers have been announced. Pretty interesting. We talked about it live and direct when it happened a few weeks ago, when it was announced a few weeks ago. But now we have some more reporting on what the numbers actually are. We were just told 8 figures from ESPN. Now we have the actual numbers, allegedly. It's a conversation worth having. So tune in for that tomorrow. I have an appointment, so I won't be able to stay on the stream for my usual hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours that we normally do here on Timeline T. But if you've missed anything, go ahead and check the live on the replay on the live tab. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. We do content every day from Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. Eastern. We come on here, I dissect everything that's new and pertinent and relevant on the timeline, and I'll bring it to you here on this live stream. So if you appreciate that and you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. If you want to spread this, share this content, go ahead and do that as well. And I will check y'all tomorrow on a new edition of Timeline T. I'm the Sam D. I'm out.